to half the battle.
And welcome, my friends, to Cobra Convergence II, where the community takes a look at Cobra toys all month long.
For this second year, we were going to invade a small nation, Molessia, but Channel Awesome threatened to sue, and then poor Steve got kidnapped, so we're helping him out instead.
Hey, just wanted to drop in and say thanks for doing this. But you know his name really isn't Steve, right?
Yes, I know, but the name he uses is just too long and difficult to remember.
Really? Too long and difficult, huh?
Yep.
Tell me, who's the guy that runs the Quickie Mart on The Simpsons?
Apuna Hasapima Petalong? What's your point, ma'am?
Forget it. Hey, do you want to help me out and come over and do some gardening?
Well, I'm on a completely different continent, so I'm gonna say no, but thanks for thinking of me.
Ugh. Why doesn't he have any weirdo friends that are local?
Anyway, since the Toy Master hasn't found me yet, how about we do a review? Let's do this quickly before my survival instincts kick in.
Meet the Viper Pilot. This figure was released in 1983 with no original body parts whatsoever. That's right, the G.I.Joe toy line is barely a year old at this point, and we've already got a completely recycled figure.
Yeah, in addition to a review, this will also be a case study on how cheap Hasbro can really get.
First of all, the entire body is from a Cobra Trooper, officially called Cobra or the Enemy, but everybody just calls it a Cobra Trooper. They didn't even bother to mix up some body parts. It's just a bloody Cobra Trooper. Now, I could talk about how iconic that figure is, and how it's nicely detailed, especially for 1983, and plenty of other stuff. But then I'd just be talking about the Cobra Trooper, and well, that's a different review entirely.
We're here to talk about the Viper Pilot.
So, how is it different from the Cobra Trooper? Well, there's only one small change, the Cobra logo on his chest. And even that idea is recycled. It's silver instead of red, just like the logo from the Cobra Officer. Oh yeah, even the one thing they made different, they ripped off from another figure. They could have at least given him an original logo, like, I don't know, that Cobra one with the bat wings or something, since he's a flyer.
I mean, throw me a bone here, will you?
Speaking of that silver logo, even the freaking paint is cheap. Unlike the red one on the Trooper, this one is extremely easy to scratch off or even rub off. And I mean really, really, really easy. I cannot overemphasize this enough. Seriously, I've seen lottery tickets that have a more durable scratch-off part. Now, as the name implies, a Viper Pilot was a vehicle driver.
Well, I should say vehicle, really. And if you thought that a cheapness thing is now over with, oh, we're only just getting started.
He came with the Viper Glider. Now, I don't have one, so normally I wouldn't be able to show it to you. But since my colleague is missing, he can't really object to me using his footage, now can he? Meet the Viper Glider. It's a piece of styrofoam with some plastic attached. That's it, really. And if you think that's as cheap as it gets, think again.
It's not even an original toy!
It's exactly the same as the Falcon Glider, the good guys version, just with different colors and stickers.
And yes, I consider the Viper Glider to be the copy, even though it came out at the same time as the Falcon.
I can justify this simply because when the G.I.Joe toy line was conceived, Hasbro hadn't thought of including an enemy yet. They only did this after Marvel sold them on the idea of Cobra. So it's likely the Falcon Glider was already planned before Cobra was even a twinkle in Larry Hama's eye. By the way, since this thing is just a couple of pieces of foam, it's extremely fragile.
Which is exactly what you want a toy that children are supposed to throw in the air to be.
On a personal note, this toy was never released in Belgium, and this footage was actually the first time I've ever seen one in the flesh, so to speak.
It's freaking huge!
I always thought it was a lot smaller, like, I don't know, maybe a little bigger than a Cobra claw. This was actually quite a surprise to see. I imagine this means it's a pain in the ass for collectors to own, as it takes up so much space.
So, let's recap.
We have a figure that's 100% recycled, with the only distinguishing mark being a Cobra logo that's also recycled. And it's the pilot of a completely recycled other toy. Captain Planet would be so proud of Hasbro here. This is, without a doubt, the cheapest toy they've ever produced.
And do you want to know the real kicker? The final irony here? By making the cheapest toy possible, they accidentally created one of the most expensive figures on the secondary market.
That's right, this figure is quite rare and will set you back a tidy sum.
Let me break this down.
Firstly, it's a vehicle driver, and they produced less vehicles than figures. Secondly, this figure is from 1983, and the first 2 years had a smaller production run than later years. So all that means that less Viper pilots were made.
And that's before we get into losses due to damage from play.
Like I said earlier, the silver Cobra logo is so fragile it starts disappearing if you look at it funny. So just normally handling the figure could damage it. Add to that, this figure was meant to be thrown in the freaking air, and you can imagine how many ended up damaged. So, low production numbers, plus a fragile toy, plus rough play by design, all equals to a very hard to find figure nowadays, with a price tag to match.
What sort of price tag?
Well, a mint figure goes from anything like $120 to $225, while a boxed glider I've seen go for $330, and that was an Argentinian one. Those are the ones I found searching for eBay auctions that actually sold in the last 30 days. People do try to sell these things for well over $1,000, but I doubt they're successful. For reference, I bought my Terradrome with box for about $350, including shipping from America to Belgium about 15 years ago.
A slightly better use of money, I feel.
Now, to be fair, you can get a Viper pilot for fairly cheap, comparatively speaking, if you don't mind one with a damaged logo. And it's not the most expensive rare G.I.Joe figure ever, as stuff like the gold-headed Steel Brigade or early logo Cobra Commander blows it out of the water.
Normally, I don't talk that much about how expensive a toy is, but this is a special case.
Anyway, this was the only toy of the Viper pilot ever released.
So we can now move on to the character, starting with the file card. And if you thought that the recycling was now done, oh boy do I have news for you!
And the card is basically the exact same one as the Cobra Trooper. That's right, they even reused a freaking file card text. Now, to be 100% accurate, there were two small differences. The card adds Viper Pilot to his secondary military specialty, and they add in the text he graduated from Viper School. Not even Viper Academy, but Viper School.
Other than that, he's just one more of the nameless, faceless legions of Cobra.
As far as the comics go, the Viper Glider shows up in issue 11, more to sell the toy than anything else, but they're used by regular troopers. Well, they could be Viper pilots for all I know, I suppose, considering there's almost no difference. Same goes for the cartoon. I can't claim Viper pilots never show up, but I can't say they do either. The gliders sure as hell do, but it's unclear who the pilots are supposed to be. This sorta makes sense for the comic and cartoon. Why bother to showcase the action figure when it's the vehicle you're trying to sell? By the way, the cartoon is why I thought the toy was a lot smaller, since they look that way animated. And that was the Viper Pilot. A completely recycled toy with no character of its own. It's the cheapest toy you could imagine that turned into one of the most expensive ones. So you could say this guy has had quite a wild ride. Fortunately, nowadays the ones we have left don't get damaged anymore, because only a complete idiot would actually try to fly the damn things.
Are you ready?
Oh dear Lord! Are we sure we have to rescue him? Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?
Crashing through the sky comes a fearful cry. Cobra! Cobra! Armies of the night, evil taking flight.
And your bollocks did up good, you did.
Yeah, in addition to being a review, this will also be a case study on how cheap Rasbro. Other than that, he's just one more of the faceless, nameless leaders of leaders.